work. And now I don't think you should always say you got to aim this low, but I'm saying that the minimal effective dose is very low. Exercise is a strong pill. Okay, so again, realizing that when you try to drive home the point that we can maintain this stuff pretty easily. Okay, again, I would say perfection is the enemy of done. You don't need a perfect environment. And for me, with my clients, I write out a bunch of like what I call on-the-road workouts. Okay, this is what you can do in a hotel gym. This is what you can do in your hotel with nothing. Okay, I had to do a Dannon commercial once, a Dannon yogurt commercial once, and I had to do an entire workout with a hotel towel. It was embarrassing, but it was effective, right? And if you Google it, you'll find it on YouTube. Just don't ever share it with anybody, okay? It is. It is. Yeah, okay. But the fact of the matter is that if you're always aiming for perfection, you're going to be doing yourself a huge disservice. Consistency is way more important than hitting that perfect program, having the perfect environment. I think sometimes we're so neurotic that it makes us worse, right? Stuff as simple as walking. Walking is hugely underrated, all right? Because we get so excited about all this intense stuff. How many times do you guys park a little further away or take the stairs and don't take the elevator, right? That stuff, non-exercise physical activity really matters. So this was also interesting. They had a control group and they had a walking group at 65% heart rate max, 1 hour, okay, for 1 year. Walking group, obviously, lower blood pressure. That's very valuable, right? Because lower blood pressure means what? One, there's a better stretch in the arteries. There's less plaque. That plaque that is here is also the plaque that's here. Okay? It also means we're getting more in each pump. Because if you're 65% resting heart rate, it means you're getting a cardiac output adaptation. It means you're stretching that left ventricle. Every time it pumps, you shoot out more blood. Right? But this was fascinating. They saw improved efficiency. They did a bunch of neurological tests, same thing, like frontal executive function tests on the computer. And they looked at brain activity. And they saw lower activation for the same task with equal improved performance. So you'd think lower activation, that would be worse. No. They could complete the same task and actually do it better, but with less effort. Right? What does that mean? They were more efficient in their brain. They were able to deliver blood and not myelinate and transfer messages quicker. Okay? And they also found, and they looked at the brain waves, the biomechanical waves that come from the foot up when people walk. And they said, why do you see this huge boost in blood flow when people walk when the intensity is so low? Because it didn't seem to make sense. Well, they found when you walk, you get a huge pressure wave through the body that significantly increases blood flow back up to the brain, right? That's why they say, like, hey, if you need to think about it, go take a walk, or think about it for a while, or go take a walk, you're gonna feel better. It's not a mistake. Okay, because when they look at the pressure waves that go through, they correlate directly with heel strike all the way back up. Okay, so simple things. Really, it is simple things. And I think sometimes we go, oh, take the stairs, right? No, it's true. The non-exercise physical activity adds up over time. And when they look at exercisers and non-exercisers, okay, the biggest difference between them isn't their chosen physical activity, it's the non-exercise physical activity. When they look at lifespan and life quality. Like how much do they move around when they're not in the gym? Because actually, when they look at a lot of research, people who exercise a lot sometimes actually limit their non-exercise physical activity because they figure, oh, I did it, or I'm tired. But it's not that hard to park a little further away or walk or take a walk instead of driving somewhere or taking an Uber, right? Now, what about things outside of exercise or outside of what we're typically thinking about? Okay, there's a lot of research about dancing, Tai Chi, more dynamic, like non-traditional movements that you don't see in the gym that relate very directly towards cognitive health. Okay, so variable movements for a variable brain, crossing the midline, rotating, okay? Tim's taught us, when he came to MBSC, taught us a lot about crawling. That's a valuable tool for connecting the right side and the left side of the brain, the corpus callosum. So they say muscular, this was really fascinating when they looked at dancing and Tai Chi. Said muscular activities, particularly coordinated cross-body movements, appear to stimulate production of neurotrophins such as dopamine that stimulate growth of existing nerve cells and neural connections in the brain. One, you hear dopamine, you think about battling depression, okay? But then also keeping people sharp. Okay, you have your corpus callosum that connects the two halves. And the more you do things where you rotate, cross side to side, things like that, the more you myelinate that to keep yourself sharper. Okay, executive functions and thought associated with frontal lobe and hippocampal regions in the brain are sustained and enhanced in people with higher levels of fitness. So think, multiplanar warm-up, crawling, target throwing, etc. Okay, so it could be as simple as doing things in the frontal plane. How many of your clients, if they're not here with you, ever do anything side to side? They don't. It's get it from a chair. Crawling really, really slow, probably a good idea. Okay? Spending time where you have to think, this moves with this. right? And you have to, and it's not just lifting weights in one plane. I think it's a very valuable tool. And I think your warm-up is a really good opportunity to use things like that because it's time for you to be creative, stimulate them mentally, get them warmed up. You can use some of these tools as ways to try to develop brain coordination, not just power, not just balance, not just hip stability. It's more than that, right? So I always encourage people, use warm-ups to do that because there's 3 goals of a warm-up, right? Body temperature, okay, warming up the central nervous system, and rehearsing the patterns for the training session or competition. Those are very general. Any of those things could probably get that job done, right? Have you ever put someone on a ladder who's never done a ladder before? Yeah. But what happens after a few weeks? They get better. And they're happy and they enjoy it. And what do they do when they screw up? They laugh. That's a valuable emotion to give somebody. You're creating an emotional experience for them when they come in here, right? So again, using these tools to think, okay, this is like giving them an antidepressant. This is like giving them a pill to battle against Alzheimer's disease or dementia, and realizing these little tiny details really do make a difference. Now, it wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about sleep and lifestyle modification, because you can do a great job in here, but if people are completely off the rails outside here, it's going to be a tough job. And I tried to think of a nice analogy, and I found this picture about sleep and these people cleaning up their brain, and it made me think about our gym. We have this cleaning lady, Lucy, that comes, right? She comes every single night, right? She cleans this whole place, 22,000 square feet. It's a mess at the end of the day. She cleans it up. Next day, it's clean. And she's missed a few days. And recently, she missed a few days. And I came in the next day, and my office was a complete disaster, right? And that was just after one day of her missing it. Just because it wasn't necessarily my office. Like, I don't pick her to clean up my stuff, but it's just like there's trash. Things need to be wiped down. Like, I take her for granted. And most people take sleep for granted. And when you sleep, that's the time that these things happen. You clean up and you recoordinate, clean up all the brain pathways, you clean up the blood, the plaque. This is all restoration time. And we consistently cut back on an hour here, or have broken down sleep, or change time zones, it continually chips away at this, right? So little tiny habits can help to try to give that back to us. So a couple things to think about. Blacking out your room. We know that when people with limited or irregular REM sleep have higher levels of dementia and cognitive disease. We also know people with irregular sleep patterns have much higher levels of anxiety and depression. So we know there's a link there. One thing, when you look at people's sleep hygiene, go do this for your clients. Like, this could be a whole nother side business. It's just a sleep hygiene person, because we know nutrition is like a lifestyle thing that we have to deal with all the time with people, but you don't realize how bad people's sleep hygiene is. Okay, one thing, the room should be completely blacked out. Okay, like if we were shut off the lights in here, you shouldn't see anything coming in through the room. Dan John has that thing, he says shark habits, right? Things you can take care of in one bite. So I've actually gone to my client's house with a thing of black electrical tape, and I said, let's go in there right now. We're going to shut the lights off and find anywhere there's light coming in here, whether it's from your alarm clock or it's from your shades that are wide open. Get blackout shades, things like that. They find even just enough light from something like an alarm clock can disrupt people's circadian rhythm enough to screw up their sleep. Right? And again, this is an easy habit to deal with. Okay? Blue blockers. Okay? Apps on your phone or things that will block blue light. We know blue light definitely disrupts circadian rhythm and REM sleep. The old thing, stay away from your phone, your computer, TV at least an hour before bed. It's not always easy to do, but I highly encourage you to try to do it. But if you're going to be on there, because sometimes you get an email, sometimes you're up late working on a presentation because you had to make a new one the next day, okay? You wear things like blue blockers, or get an app for your phone or your computer that can change it. Flux on your computer, you can set to a schedule, a daily schedule. At this time, it'll take out all the blue light. At this time, it'll give you the blue light back. So that way you're not staring at a screen. Same thing for your phone. In fact, let me find, where's my phone? I'm going to show you.
So real quick, before you keep going.
Yeah.
I need to make sure people are fucking listening to this. So, 2 comments. First, I'm so happy you bring in these presentations yesterday, and you had to create this thing. This is unreal. Okay, the second thing is, so everything, and I'm not fucking around right now. I need you to listen to what he's saying. Everything that he said, so, and a lot of you guys follow me on Instagram. I shared a couple days ago, I attempted suicide last year, right? I've struggled with this for the last 5 or 6 years, okay? I have been, doing my research and everything. For the last 6 months, I've basically implemented 90% of what he's talking about. Yeah, I feel fucking a million times better. Cool. Right? So I'm telling you this because everything he's saying, I'm going, holy shit, yeah, I found out the same thing. Okay, yeah. There's a couple things I'm like, oh, like the blackout. I'm like, fuck, I need to blackout my room, right? So, but
seriously, if you're not, I'm making sure, if you're not listening and paying attention and like really like everything he's saying, because this is all stuff we're going to be implementing, start right this second and go back and do it.
And then even like on your phone, I actually show you, one of the guys who used to work for us put up an Instagram post on how to do this. You can literally just, to get rid of blue light, and it doesn't have to be this intense, do that so it changes, right? And it's like, it's a setting on the back, but there's also apps you can download that'll do that for you. So I could say anything like that. He's smarter than me. I didn't know how to do it. He's like, just go in and do this, this, and this.
Settings, it has it.
Yeah, right. And because sometimes I two businesses. Like sometimes I have to answer stuff at night, but if I stare at my phone and go to bed, I'm like, oh, I feel terrible. And those little things add up. Like it's tiny little changes that add up over time.
You can on a phone, on an iPhone, you can have it. So I have it start at 7:30 at night, and then it doesn't change back until 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So then during that whole time, it blocks all that through that.
Yeah, and
Twilight, because you do it with like the sun setting and rising.
yeah, it's great. And then blue blockers are like $10. And like your friends are gonna think you're weird, but like my girlfriend lives with me, so like she's gonna have to move out if she thinks it's that bad. So I wear them. Right?
It'll automatically, like Apple has a spot where you can just hit sunset to sunrise,
Yeah.
so it'll do it as the sun sets and rises.
Yeah, and those are just simple behaviors. Like you teach your clients those things. You're like, okay, those little things that they would have never have any idea about, right? Also, temperature when people sleep, right? If you're sweating, you got to change the temperature. Most people sleep in an environment that's way too hot. They make things like the chili pad that are on the bed, or simply, like I have a Nest, like mine is set that at this time it drops down to 60 to 64 degrees. The ideal sleeping temperature is going to be under 68 for most people, right? So just changing the temperature in your house prior to sleep, easy life hack. Like these are things I give if you've seen any of my YouTube videos, they're completely born out of people asking me questions and clients asking me questions. And this is stuff that they ask me about, how can I have better sleep? Okay, so set your temperature down lower. Most people are sleeping at too high of a temperature. They have way too many layers on. Sleep naked, it's fine. It's probably good for you, okay? Also, somewhat counterintuitive, warm shower before you sleep. You would think, oh, I want a lower body temperature. You do, but there's a good way to trick the system. When you take a warm shower, what happens when you step out into cooler air? You get cold. Your body temperature plummets. It's a good way to hack the system. Your core temperature will actually go down for a certain period of time. That's why you feel restful after a warm shower. You can fall asleep easily. Okay, so again, if you have trouble falling asleep, warm shower is a really good thing to do about 20, 30 minutes beforehand. Go to bed. Okay? Now, again, I'm not a nutritionist, and I'm not going to pretend to be a nutritionist, but I think I can give you some really basic info that can start to deal with the low-hanging fruit, no pun intended. Okay, but this is the ingredients you build your brain from. Okay, what you put in is what makes the cells we're made of. So, okay, like I like beer and pizza as much as the next guy, and I enjoy it, right? But I think you also have to think about these are the raw ingredients. If you're going to build a building, you wouldn't choose crappy ingredients. Same thing with yourself. Okay, some things to think about. Zinc. Okay, we know that low zinc levels is directly related with depression and anxiety. Zinc also helps you sleep. It also helps your testosterone production. All right, so for guys, we know low testosterone can be a risk factor for depression. Okay, some easy sources, leafy greens like spinach, cashews, red meats, right? Also, I would recommend most people to supplement 50 milligrams prior to sleep. Okay, ZMA was a really popular supplement back in the day, and I still take zinc and magnesium. Magnesium will be the next thing I talk about. It helps you regulate your sleep cycle. When they look at people who take zinc or have zinc deficiency, they find people who have higher levels of zinc have a more regular circadian rhythm than people who don't. Okay, meaning it's more predictable. Okay, and that means you can sleep on a regular schedule. Okay, magnesium. We know magnesium has a calming effect. People give it to, it can be treated for anxiety. Also, if you have it before you go to sleep, it helps you calm and relax. Okay, foods that are in, things like pumpkin seeds, again, chard, any leafy fibrous greens, probably gonna be a good option. Almonds, avocado, these are all things that strength coaches tend to eat anyways. Okay, typically supplement 400 milligrams. Glycinate is more available than any other magnesium supplement. Sometimes they're hard to digest for people. Magnesium glycinate has more bioavailability than the other ones. Again, those are two very cheap supplements too. It's not like you're gonna break the bank. It's like less than $10 for a big bottle of each of those. So not that big of an investment. Okay, this was interesting. They look at what they call sulforaphane, which is in broccoli, specifically also very, very high in broccoli sprouts, higher than like any other vegetable. It's in other greens, but mostly in broccoli. And when they give that to stress-induced mice that they like chased around the cage and made them literally, they looked at the stress and blood profiles and they gave them sulforaphane. They saw significant drops in inflammatory response and drops in depression-related behavior. Okay, and so when they look at the supplement in general, they see that it changes the HPA axis, it changes the stress axis from an adrenal standpoint, right? Again, this is all stuff your mother told you, eat your broccoli, right? She knew this. She didn't actually know, but she knew it, right? Okay, it's true though, okay? So again, it's sometimes I'm up here, I'm telling you stuff you already know, but I think sometimes you need to see the science, and I can give you all the research. If you're interested, Rhonda Patrick is the best thing going as far as the internet goes. So she has a whole bunch of research on her website that she breaks down and decodes and you can reference to. And that's where I get a lot of my data. It's pretty unbelievable stuff. Okay. I think fish oil supplementation is a no-brainer, right? Okay. When they look at the there's no doubt an anti-inflammatory. Again, you're going to see the same things I referenced before. Things like IL-6, CRP, and TNF-alpha, major inflammatory markers, significant drops when they supplemented with a bunch of adults with fish oil. One thing to realize also, the lowering effect was most effective in non-obese subjects. Okay, so again, body fat is an inflammatory substance. We store senescent cells and all this inflammatory cytokines, but most easily stored in visceral fat, and subcutaneous fat. That's why when people lower their body fat, you see inflammation levels go down. So again, for any of these lifestyle modifications to work, a good idea is to typically bring down body mass. Okay, and again, I think sometimes we get so caught on body mass from a visual standpoint, but it's more or less from a health standpoint. All right, you don't have to have a six-pack. I just think you don't have to be carrying around a spare tire. Is probably more importantly. Okay, again, we talked about amyloid plaque in the brain. That's what builds up when you have Alzheimer's. We know that for sure. Okay, when they look at phagocytosis, that's when your immune system eats the stuff, destroys it. We talked about insulin-degrading enzyme. When they give people EPA and omega-3, they tend to see an uptick in the turnover and phagocytosis of amyloid plaque. And then this is really cool. You know that that experiment I talked about earlier where they gave the people the 3 different substances and they looked at depression and those markers. Remember that? Well, what they did to follow this up, this was fascinating. They gave EPA, 2 grams of EPA per day to the same group, to the 2 groups that got inflammation. And the ones who got the inflammatory cytokines reported 0 depressive